If you go to a dentist and say, what kind of patients don't you like? They go, I don't like patients that are focused on coupons and discounts and things like that. Patients that like just assume that we're trying to steal their money. However, dentists are all those things. They come to every single time. They're like, Gary, I'm talking to 4 marketing companies and we're weighing you against it. And we're going to go.
All dentists know the common career paths. But how do you know which path is right for you? And are there other options out there?
On this podcast, we will be chatting with industry experts. We want to bring you the knowledge and resources you need to take your career to the next level and break down those industry secrets interview by interview.
We are here to ignite a revolution in the dental landscape
and help you, the dentist, build the career you have always wanted.
I'm Dr. Cassidy Reeder.
I'm Carter Frank.
And welcome to the Revolution Dentistry Podcast. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Cassidy Reeder here with Carter Frank and Gary Bird. This is Revolution Dentistry Podcast, where we help you with strategies to build lasting success for yourself and your family. Thank you so much, Gary, for joining us. Gary is the CEO and founder of SMC National, a 3-time Inc. 5000 fastest growing company whose focus is dental marketing and practice growth. Over the past several years, he's helped hundreds of dentists across the country dramatically grow their patient base and revenue through innovative marketing strategies. In addition to running SMC National, Gary is a sought-after speaker and author on topics like dental marketing, practice management, and leadership. He's the host of the top-rated marketing podcast, Dental Marketing Theory. He's been featured in prestigious industry publications like Dental Economics and the Journal of the American Dental Association. Most importantly, Gary is passionate about empowering dentists to achieve their goals and build the practices of their dreams. Gary, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Excited to talk with you guys.
So Gary, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to bring your marketing expertise into the dental industry.
So that's an interesting question. So it's actually kind of funny that you asked that, because one of the questions that I did on my podcast, I did hundreds of episodes. I asked everybody, how did you end up in the dental industry? And it's really interesting. So dentists are all here on purpose. So they usually have a family member, a friend, or somebody like that. Same with, seems dental hygienists are pretty similar to that because you have to go to schooling, right? So it's a big decision. What's interesting is that pretty much everybody else is here by accident. And so I'm no different. Everybody that I've talked to ends up in the dental industry kind of like they start a career in something and then they accidentally get introduced to the dental industry. So nobody says, and you guys probably know this, right? You don't know, none of your friends are like, man, when I grow up, I want to be a dental marketer. Like no one's ever said that. Yeah, none of them, right? Everybody's like, man, I want to market like something cool, something, so no one's really thinking that way. So I just met a dentist and I had a bunch of businesses that I worked with, and I met a dentist from a referral and they said, can you do it in dental? And I was like, probably. And we did it, and their office went from $90,000 a month in collections to over $400,000 a month in collections.
Oh, wow. My gosh.
And it was over a little bit of a time period, but it was in California, really competitive area. Now, I was too dumb to know that it was super competitive. I was too dumb to know that was even good growth. You know what I mean? I had no idea. Literally had no idea what I was doing or if it was like amazing or not. Well, he referred me. He was my first client. I still work with him. This was many, many years ago. And over time, I started to realize like, oh, there's something to the dental industry. I need to stop working with like sports arenas, restaurants, car lots, like all these other things that I was doing. We had big chain car washes. It was all just dumb compared to dentistry from a business standpoint to be in any of those other verticals. And so we decided about 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago, we're not working with anybody that's not a dentist anymore. And then from there, we continued to niche down. And over that time, we actually became, it was kind of scary, right? When you niche down like that as a marketer or just a business owner in general, you're like, dude, is there going to be enough business for me? There's going to be enough opportunities? But every time we niche down, we actually grew a lot more. So we've actually been on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list 3 years in a row
That's fascinating.
For the whole nation. And we only do dentists And we only work with a specific kind of dentist too. So like our TAM, our total addressable market, super small. But because we're
Right.
so focused, we get good results, and then they tell their friends, and then we grow.
That's fascinating. And, I feel like a lot of people are learning that the riches are in the niches,
Yep. Yeah, specialists
And-
specialists always get paid more. That was the thing that really clicked for me that I heard as a role is that if you're a specialist, you get paid more. It's true in dental, right?
It is.
The specialists get paid more. So I was like, oh, okay. So I got to not be really good at marketing. I need to be really good at dental marketing and a specific kind of dental marketing.
And you've brought so much value to, I said hundreds, I meant to say thousands of dentists.
Yep.
And that's incredible. Thank you so much for bringing your expertise on behalf of a dentist. Thank you so much for bringing your expertise to the industry. We really, really appreciate it. And, I guess I wanted to follow up with another question. So you've mentioned that SMC, has had a 95% success rate in helping dentists and helping practices achieve their monthly lead generation goals. So can you walk us through the key elements that make a lead generation campaign successful for a dental practice?
Yeah, and let me first qualify what that means, because most people in the dental industry don't talk that way, but that's how we talk internally as a company. So
Right.
when I say, hey, we're hitting 95% of goal, so we have all of our clients, and all of our clients, we track what their goals are. And so we track their lead goal, and we track their conversion rates, and we track their new patient goals. And so our target is to hit 95% of lead goal every single month. And
Wow.
that's our target. And that's what we're aiming for every single month. So to do that, you have to, number one, you have to track the lead goals. Number two, you have to actually track qualified lead versus unqualified leads, which almost nobody does in dental marketing. And you might be
Right.
going, well, of course, I just want qualified leads. Well, you have to actually track it, and you have to actually have a way to delineate the difference between qualified and unqualified. And that's a big deal. So if you've ever worked with a marketing company before and they go, oh, we got you 40 billion phone calls, what they're actually saying is that we didn't actually track if these were leads or not, or qualified leads or not versus unqualified. And that's the first number that you actually want to track as a dental office from a growth standpoint, is what is my cost to generate a qualified lead. And then from there, you want to measure what is my cost to acquire a paying customer. That's called
Right.
CAC, or cost per patient. And again, these are things that very, very few people, you'd be shocked, actually track these things properly in the dental industry. And everything we do revolves around data. And then we're not perfect. There's definitely people that, we can't get what they want, or we can't help them the way that we want to. But most people that we work with, we're able to hit all their goals, explain it in a way that they understand it. And then also, when they're not hitting their goals, explain to them why. So I'll give you some nuances inside of this conversation. Like right now is the election. So we're recording this. I'm not sure when it will be posted, but the election is tomorrow. People's not hitting their lead goals right now. Why? Because people are scared right now because of the election, especially in swing states where they're pumping millions of dollars into negative ads and everybody's going to die if you don't vote for me on both sides. So it's like people kind of freeze and they go, maybe I don't need to go to the dentist right now. Right. So there's less patients on the market now. Thankfully,
that's fascinating.
That will go away. That'll change very soon. But that's a reason why people are struggling right now. So just being able to working through those kind of things. And like, here's another one. People say, well, Gary, I'm at 50 new patients a month. I want to get to 100. Okay, great. So we're going to help you get to 100. And so we need to get you another 50 new patients. So we work with them. We get them another 50 new patients. But then they only end up at 75 for the month. And then they go, well, why didn't I hit 100? And we were able to delineate, like, well, remember how you were getting 50 before? 25 of those were coming from patient referrals, and you're not getting those this month. What happened? Well, my hygienist quit. Oh, yeah. So we don't control that, right? Like, not all new patients are from marketing. Usually in a healthy office, about 40 to 60%. around half of your new patients are coming from patient referrals, which has nothing to do with digital marketing, which what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with your patient journey and your operations and how you treat the patients and how smooth the patient journey is. And we don't control that. And so just being able to, in a dashboard, delineate those things, we integrate with the PMS and show them and like, oh, they can get it now, instead of what happens a lot of times is they just fire the marketing company. They go, you're fired. The marketing company actually did a good job in this scenario that I'm presenting.
Yeah.
And so now you're starting over with a new marketing company that's going to take time to ramp up, when you really, what you should have been fixing is your internal operations. So these kind of conversations just don't happen in the dental industry.
They just shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. So conversion coaching is a unique aspect of your service. And I like that a lot, because I believe that you can generate hundreds of leads, but if you can't actually get them to schedule an appointment, it's a wasted marketing budget, right?
Yep.
So what specific strategies do you recommend for practices to effectively convert leads into schedule appointments and long-term patients?
That's a really good question. So when you say conversion coaching, what dentists hear is sales, and then they cringe and they stop listening, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Let me just start by saying this. Dentists don't want shopper patients, right? Dentists don't. They go, shopper patients are bad. And what's very interesting about dental, because I've been in dental for a long time, I'm in all these dental Facebook groups. I talk to dentists all the time. Dentists are the patients they don't like. Okay. So if you go to a dentist and say, what kind of patients don't you like? They go, I don't like shopper patients, the ones that ask for like how much things are and things like that. I don't like patients that are focused on coupons and discounts and things like that. And I don't like patients that like jump to the conclusion and ask, just assume that we're trying to steal their money and those kind of things, right? And those are dentists will tell you that, and they'll be very transparent with you. However, dentists are all those things. I've never worked with a dentist that didn't shop, not once. They come.
I'm guilty.
They come to every single time. They're like, Gary, I'm talking to 4 marketing companies, and we're weighing you against it, and we're going to go with the one, right? Like they do, and rightfully so. I would too, right? Every single time. Like one of the biggest Facebook groups out there for dentists is called Nifty Thrifty Dentist, and every single day they post coupons in there. And every day, all the dentists in there, very successful dentists, are in there like, hey, do you got a discount code for an Intero camera? Hey, do you got a discount code for a chair? Hey, I need new cabinets. Anybody got a discount code? Any discount code for marketers?
They're shoppers.
They're 100% shoppers, all dentists.
Oh, wow.
And then also, they just hate marketers, right? Like, and I understand why, but they just assume the worst. So they're the exact profile of what they hate, which is, I think, is kind of comical. But my point is this: all patients are shoppers, just like all doctors are shoppers. Why? Because they want value, but they don't understand. They're kind of scared, right? Patients don't understand how dental works, and so they're scared, and so they don't know what questions to ask. So they just ask what naturally comes to mind, just like dentists do. Dentists don't really understand marketing, because they're dentists. They're not supposed to, right? And so they just ask like, well, how much is it? Well, I'm like, well, how much is what? Like, what do you want to do? Right? Like, what's your goal? You can't just say how much is dental, right? And that's what patients do. They call and they're like, oh, my tooth hurts. How much is it going to cost? Well, I can't really.
Yeah.
It's just, they don't know what else to ask. They're scared. They don't know what else to ask, right? And so patients do this. And then here's the really bad part. The dentists train their teams to weed these people out. These are actually if someone reaches out to me and says, Gary, how much is marketing? I'm like, dude, this is like a high motivated, super good lead to turn into a customer. And it's very similar with the dental office. So what the question that really should be asked by the dental office is, are we attracting the right kind of people who have money to afford dentistry? And if they're and see, dentists think, well, if they have money to afford dentistry, why are they asking about pricing? Well, why do dentists ask about pricing?
Exactly.
Dentists have money. Dentists aren't poor. They have money. So why are they asking about pricing? It's because they don't understand the value exchange. They're a little bit of in a disadvantage from an information standpoint. So they're just asking the questions that naturally come to mind. So what we do is we train their office how to deal with that. And it's so simple, right? So if you're on a phone call or a front desk is on a phone call and someone calls in and says, "Hey, how much is a dental implant?" Hey, great question. We get people that ask that all the time. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with? You get their name. Let me get your number in case we get disconnected. So now you have their contact information. And then you say, let me just ask you a couple questions just to make sure that we can help you. Is the tooth impacted? What's the patient going to say? I don't know.
Yes. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. How many roots does the tooth have? I don't know. What's the bone density in that area? I don't know. And they're going to say, I don't know. You know what? That's totally fine. Most people can answer that. And so in our office, we have an exam and x-ray for free or for X99 or whatever it is, right? And so we'll get you in. We'll tell you exactly what's going on there and then can be able to give you exact pricing because guess what? No one can give you pricing without that information.
Right.
And you can do that for everything and it works 100% of the time. Someone calls in and goes, how much is it filling? How many surfaces is it on? Right? And you can do this for anything.
Wow.
And so you use these redirecting questions and I have seen people answer them, but I am convinced because I've listened to thousands and thousands and thousands of dental calls. I'm convinced it's dentists that are answering these questions and they call that are trying to figure out how much people charge, right? Because dentists do that. And so I have had dentists go,
interesting.
They start answering it and I'm like, that is not there's no way that's a patient. Patients don't talk that way. That's a dentist.
So you get dentists price checking each other.
Oh, 100% dentists do that.
Wow.
Oh, 100% dentists do that. Yeah. Dentists call each other offices and go, yeah, I need a da-da-da. But dentists are, if you ask redirecting questions to a dentist, they actually know how to answer those. What's the bone density like? And if a patient is answering that, like, it's not a patient, it's a doctor.
I really like that, actually, that strategy of asking those questions. I think that's really a great way to help people understand that it's a lot more complicated than they expect, right? It's a lot more complicated than they understand.
Exactly. Yeah. If you reach out to me and say, how much is dental marketing? I'm going to say, well, what's your goals? Well, my goal,
right.
I'm on Facebook right now and someone just posted, how helpful is SEO with this company? Is it worth the cost? And I literally said, it depends what your goals are. Like if your goal is just to rank, then maybe it is worth it. Maybe it isn't. But if you rank, just because you rank doesn't mean you're going to get new patients because you have to have good Google reviews. And when I say good, you have to have a similar number to your competition. Because if you rank number 1 and your competition ranks number 2, and you have 100 Google reviews, all 5-star, and your competition has 1,000 all 5-star, you're going to think SEO doesn't work. Well, no. SEO worked. You're ranked number 1, but it didn't work from a lead conversion standpoint. So you're not asking the right questions, right?
Right.
And as a dentist, and I understand that's because you don't know what to ask. And so, and then here's another one. What's your capacity? So people are like, I want to rank, and they rank, but they have no availability. They get no new patients because patients call in and go, yeah, I want to get my teeth cleaned. Okay, we can see you in 2026.
Right.
Well, guess what? None of those people are going to come in. So it's very interesting how people, if you can just direct people with the right energy and the right questions, people will end up scheduling and people will end up coming in. But everybody has to be trained on this. There's very few exceptions.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that brings me to another question. So tracking and measurement, they're both critical in understanding the market, like effectiveness. So how important is it for marketing software to integrate with the practice management systems to provide insight and marketing on marketing costs and ROI? I imagine that's a pretty critical aspect of it.
Yeah, it's really important. Like, so we used to do this all manually because it wasn't possible to do with the PMSs because they just didn't play ball. And so we would just build spreadsheets and we would track every lead that came in. And then we would cross-reference that against the PMS manually. Like we would log in. And
how long ago was that?
6 years ago, 7 years ago. Yeah.
What a headache.
it was a boatload of work. So we would get, we used to ask the offices, but they would never update it. So we were just like, just give us logins to your PMS. We'll go pull all the data. We'd have our list of patients. We'd go cross-reference it against their list. And then we'd tell them like, this is how many came in and this is how many, did whatever. And then we'd load that back up into a dashboard. Now we can do that all automatically. So we can actually see how many opportunities were created, how many of those were qualified, how many of those actually scheduled, how many of those came in, how much treatment they bought. And we can just follow that patient for the lifetime of them with the office. So we can actually see true LTV, which it means lifetime value, which most dentists, you go, hey, what's your lifetime value? They go, oh, probably like it's around 5,000 or it's around 10. They just make up numbers that someone told them to say, which is fine to do if you want to do that, but it doesn't really actually tell you anything. We can actually see in a dashboard, hey, you spent $10,000 last month, and then this is how much those patients spent. And then in 12 months, we can go back and look at those patients again and see what their lifetime value is now a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. And so that's really cool and very essential to anything you do around marketing. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
And it's essential. It's an essential component. I really like that you guys are able to offer that. And I don't think that it can really be done any other way in order to maximize your guys' return for these practices. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So as dental practices expand, they're obviously going to need different kinds of marketing, right? Because if it's a small rural practice, their marketing, maybe like a local radio ad, is going to work for them. But if you have like a 10 practice group, they're going to have to be running Facebook ads. They're going to have to be running all sorts of different things. So how do you ensure that a marketing effort can scale effectively with the growth of a practice, especially when new locations or specialties are introduced?
Really, really good question. Okay. So I'd reframe that question a little bit because it makes some assumptions. So here's the interesting thing about dental that most people don't understand. The nuance in the marketing is actually not by the number of locations that you have, but by how you position the branding of those locations. And let me explain, okay? So I'm going to use a little bit of a framework that everybody will understand, and hopefully it's okay I use these names. So you have 3 different frameworks for marketing in the dental industry. You have the Heartland model, which is every practice names them their own thing, right? So when you walk into a Heartland office, you don't act as a patient, you don't know you're in a Heartland office because it's invisible. It's invisible, right? And so what does that mean? Well, that means every time you set up a marketing campaign, it's like starting from scratch, same as the guy that's starting his first dental practice. Like, it's the same thing. You're on an even playing ground. Now, Heartland has a lot more money and they have a lot more data, but outside of that, you're starting the same from the patient's point of view, right? It's Dr. Smith DDS there on the corner, and they don't have any idea if that's a big practice, a little practice, or 100 locations, 1 to 0 locations. Okay, that's one business model. The other business model on the opposite end of the spectrum is Aspen. When you walk into an Aspen office, you know you're in an Aspen office.
Yep.
And so Aspen office, you know you're in an Aspen office. And so you have the burden in the creation, because when you're opening your 400th location, and I can just add them to the website, and then they're going to rank a lot faster. There's not a lot of thought. Like, you've already built all of the frameworks. Everything's already kind of done. Like, it's pretty easy. Now, the downside to it is if you get a bad reputation at one location, that spreads to all your other locations.
Yep. Right.
As an example, if you go on Facebook and type in I hate Aspen, there's a Facebook group that is there with thousands of members of people complaining.
Oh no.
That will never happen to Heartland because they don't know they're at a Heartland office, right? Like, you can't physically do that. So there are pros and cons that you have to think through, right? Like, as an example, if like you have a 10 location practice and you name them all ABC Dental, and they're all in the local, say in Chicago area, and one of the associate doctors goes out, gets drunk, kills somebody in a car, they're going to say
rough.
Dr. Smith from ABC Dental killed somebody in a car. That impacts all the other 9 practices. Like, you are vulnerable to that, right?
Yeah, we got to get PR on the case in that situation.
Yeah, you got serious problems. Now, there's a third model, though. The third model is and this is to answer your question more specifically now, is the Pacific model, Pacific Dental. The patients don't know that they're in a Pacific Dental, but you guys and me, we know when we walk into a Pacific Dental office because they use the same logo, but different names. Their websites look exactly the same, but you wouldn't know because they use different URLs and different names. Well, why is that important? Well, that's important because you can quickly scale it. So you take a model that already works, and then you just duplicate it out with a different name, same logo, colors are all the same, offices look similar, but from the patient's perspective, it's a brand new office every single time. And you would never figure that out unless you went to like 20 offices and started to piece that together. So when you talk about scaling marketing, it really depends on which business model that you have. If you have the Heartland model, you basically are starting over every single time. If you have the Aspen model, then it's just plug and play, right? Like it's really, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. If you're using the Pacific model, you have all the frameworks, and then you're just adjusting them slightly based on that local office. The doctors are different or whatever. And so there is no right or wrong answer. There's pros and cons to each of those models. And you just have to decide which poison you want to bite off. Like which one's best suits your organization as you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that your experience, it sounds like from a marketer standpoint, like you would prefer the Aspen just because it's a lot simpler to track and to manage. But would you say that the Pacific would be, I guess, the most ideal from, a dentist standpoint?
It depends on what your goals are. Like how big, like I would ask, like how big are you going to get, right? If you're going to get to 2,000 practices, then like really think through this, because you're going to have a bigger marketing team or spend more on marketing if you don't do this. But on the flip side, doing the Aspen model can hurt you, right? Like there are vulnerabilities to that. So it depends how big you're going to get. It depends what kind of dentistry you're doing. It depends on how you want to be perceived. But here's the thing to keep in mind. No patient ever, just like there's nobody out there that goes, I want to be in dental marketing. There's no patient that's like, I want to go find a office that has 100 locations. No one cares. Dentistry is a local business, right? You're not joining a gym. Like if you travel for work, then you want a gym with a big location, right? Dentistry's not that way. Like no one's going and looking for a dentist going, well, I want to make sure they have a boatload of locations. Only dentists care about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's very true. And, I guess that leads me into my next question. So you've indicated that optimizing the new patient journey can lead up to like a 20% increase in new patients from a practice's current ad budget. What are some of the common inefficiencies you've observed in the new patient journey, and how can practices address these to improve their patient acquisition efforts? So I'm not sure if that was...
No, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to flip the numbers on their head. So I have this thing called the black hole of marketing, and the reason I call it that is because the average dentist loses 80% of their new patient opportunities before they get to the office, and almost nobody realizes it. And this is why everybody hates marketers, and understandably so. But it's not actually a marketing problem. So let's take, and this is the average office. So this is 80% of dentists out there fall into this category.
Oh my gosh.
And this is data. This is not something I just made up. I'm going to give you actual data and averages in the dental industry. So let's say you take an average office and you give them $10,000 for marketing. And I'm just using that number so it's round, so it's easy to do math. And let's assume that their marketing is perfect. There's no such thing, but let's just say it's performing at peak performance, that you couldn't make it any better. No one can go in and make it any better. And you use it all the right ways at all the right places. Okay, guess what the average unanswered call rate is in the dental industry right now?
I'm going to say 30%?
Yep, you're right there. So it's
wow.
It's
I was gonna say
35%. 35%. So if you go and call 10
Dang.
dentists right now in the middle of the day during normal business hours, you're going to have 3 to 4 of them that don't answer their calls. And
That's unacceptable.
I feel
It's
like the dentists say that they answer much more than they actually do, though.
all
If
the
you-
dentists say
That's
we
true.
answer 100% of our calls. They tell me that every time. That's why I do this exercise. They all because they don't hear the phone ringing. They don't realize it's not even possible to answer 100% of your calls because you only have 1, maybe 2 phone people, and all the calls come at peak times. So they come early in the morning when you're least staffed, they come at lunch when you're least staffed, and they come at the end of the day when you're least staffed. You end up missing 35% of your calls. If you really good is answering 90% of your calls during normal business hours.
That's
Right.
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good for the dental industry. So let's just take this now. So how much of your $10,000, how much did you just lose? You just lost $3,500 if you're average. Okay. So,
Wow.
and people go, wait, we call them back. It's like, bro, they already called 4 other dental offices and scheduled somebody where they're not going to take your call. Right. Have you ever, anybody ever, and just for the audience out there, have you ever called a carpet cleaner before that you needed a carpet cleaner for and they didn't answer the first time? Pretty common. You called second, you called third, finally someone picks up, they schedule. When those other 4 people call you back, what are you going to do? You're not going to answer the phone. You don't recognize their number. You're not calling them back. They lost that opportunity. Everybody understands that. Now here's where it gets really ugly. The average conversion rate of marketing new patients on the phone, and I track this meticulously, is 50%. Now, most dentists say, no, we're really good on the phone. I hear Susan scheduling people all day long. What they don't realize is that half of your new patients are coming from patient referrals, which my 12-year-old could schedule. Like, just don't mess it up. Right? Like, if I tell my wife to go to a dentist, she's going to go schedule and they just don't mess it up.
Exactly.
So those converted 100%. But
they should.
Yeah, they should. Like, if they don't, like, if you're not converting your patient referrals really close to 100%, then you literally will not be in business for very long. But everybody does because it's easy. But here's the problem. The marketing patients come in and you only convert those at a coin flip, 50%. So that means your blended ratio, because about half of new patients come from patient referrals for most offices, that means your blended ratio is 75% for your new patients, which isn't bad. That's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's like, no, we're good on the phones, but they don't realize they just lost another $3,200 on the phones on conversions. So now what are we at?
Mm-hmm.
We're almost lost $7,000.
That's crazy.
Just on those 2 things. And that has nothing to do with marketing. This is just average in the dental industry. Now it gets worse. So the average time to appointment at a dental office right now is over 2 weeks. Now, most dentists will say, no, we have availability. And this is how dentists think of availability. They'll go to the schedule and they'll see we have a cleaning spot today at 2 and we have a cleaning spot tomorrow at 10:30. And it's like, and then we don't have anything else for a while, right? It's like, that's not availability. Like, no one wants those spots to begin with, right? Like, no one wants those times to begin with. And on top of that, it's like, you didn't give enough options. Like, having 1 or 2 options is not availability. You have to have block scheduling in place where you have like, hey, what days work best for you, or what works better for you, mornings or afternoons? Great. Okay, here we have these 2 spots available. Does that work? We have 9 a.m. tomorrow if mornings work better for you. Does that work? Great. And you have to have multiple spots, because otherwise what's going to happen is if you just go, all right, Mr. Patient, yeah, we have 1 spot today at 8:30 and I got to pick up the kids. I got to do this, right? So you just end up losing those people, or you end up scheduling them so far out that they end up no-showing. Because you can't make a new patient from marketing wait that long. Now, patient referrals, they will show up in 2 weeks. They don't care, right? They're going to show up no matter what, because someone else already did the selling for them. And so what ends up happening, your no-show rate on your marketing patients ends up skyrocketing. This could get up to like 30%. So here's what ends up happening. You end up losing 80% of that marketing budget. You end up with 2,000 of the 10,000 through the door, which doesn't work. It doesn't, from an ROI standpoint, you're just like, marketing sucks. And this is the glass ceiling that dentists feel, where they're like, man, I've had 40 new patients a month for the last bazillion years. My retention rate is at 95%. And I've been spending $5,000 a month on marketing forever, but I've never grown. You know what that tells you? You're actually not getting any of those marketing patients into the door, very few of them. And you're just treading water and you're just wasting your time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
My gosh, that is mind blowing. And, I feel like you've probably told this story many times and it's like a part of your mission and your goal. Like, dentists, wake up. You guys have got to realize these mistakes you're making because they're detrimental. They are absolutely detrimental to your practice and the growth of it long term. And so I feel like once dentists understand these components, it's so much more than just spending the money. You just feel like, oh, I'll throw 10 grand at marketing and boom, all my problems are going to be solved. All these patients are going to show up. But there's so many different steps and components to getting those patients actually in the chair and retained and happy. And you nailed it on the head, Gary. Thank you for all that explanation.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah. So the field of dentistry is constantly evolving, and you know that better than anyone. You have some doctors who are using all these new technologies and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And you have other doctors that don't know how to use the flashlight on their phone. So there's two different kinds of doctors, right? And so what emerging trends or technologies in the dental industry do you see shaping the future? And how is SMC National preparing to integrate these advancements into its offerings?
So this is really interesting. So it depends. It depends on what kind of marketing you're talking about. So there's short buying cycle marketing and there's long buying cycle marketing inside of dental. And basically, for just time's sake, short buying cycles is like general dentistry, anything under $1,000. And what that means is like, if I fall and chip my tooth right now, I'm going to get into a dentist today or tomorrow, and I'm going to get the work done pretty quickly. And my problem's going to be solved in a couple days, right? From the second I need it to when I actually have it completed. It's very short. And then you have long buying cycles, which is like anything over $1,000, $2,000. And that's all of your like aligners, your implants, your full arch, all those kind of things. This is much more sales driven in a much longer buying cycle. So I'm going to take the longer buying cycles and I'm going to put those off to the side for now. I'm going to talk about GP. So in GP, the thing that's coming, and this is going to tick dentist off, but it's actually going to end up being a great thing, is AI phone answering. It's really close. It actually works in some markets right now, meaning the patient calls, they have questions, they get their questions answered, and then they get a scheduling opportunity, and it's all done through AI. Okay. The reason this is amazing is because dentistry's really changed over the last 5 years since COVID. In 2020, or before 2020, I should say, you could basically, as a dentist, a solo practitioner, say, hey, if I get 50 new patients a month, all my numbers work. Like, I'm going to be good. I'm going to make money. You didn't really have to look at anything else. That was like the main thing you had to look at. Dial in a couple other things a little bit and you're pretty much good. That's not true anymore. And why? Well, your cost of goods went up. Your labor cost went up. Right? Hygienists used to be like $35 an hour. In some markets, they're getting paid $100 an hour. That's a pretty big swing in a couple years, right? So your patients are getting squeezed as well with inflation. So they're spending less. They're just gonna be harder to convert. And then at the same time, insurances are paying less. So you're getting it from every end, right? Like, there's no breathing room. So that same 50 new patients that used to work for you, you get them coming in now. It's like, my numbers aren't working anymore. And so dentists used to solve this problem through just more new patients and then just hire more people. But that will actually just dig a deeper hole for you now. So what has to happen is you have to end up automating some of this stuff out, some of this cost out. And I think phone answering through AI is going to be something that's huge. And then internal marketing is the other thing. There's almost no internal marketing inside of dental, and it's because there's no true CRM. So we use to track all this stuff. We use trackable.io. It's a CRM that integrates with the PMS, and they're actually building out all kinds of marketing automations internally and all those kind of things. Really cool, very powerful. Well, nobody does that right now. The most people do is like, I'll send a text randomly to somebody, you know what I mean? Or we'll send an email. That's the extent of most internal marketing. That's all going to radically change. And what that's going to do is if you can automate the front end and then automate that back end of that marketing, you can now start to get way more bang for your buck out of your marketing without adding labor cost and time and time from your team and doing it, and automate a lot of it. That is here. It's here now. It's just the bugs are still being worked out. You know what I mean? So in probably 2025, you'll see this really start to take place. Now, how quickly will it implement? I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but when I was a kid, if you texted an older person at when it cost them money, they would get so mad at you. I'm old. I'm 42. So they would get so mad.
I remember that.
Okay. So they would get so mad, like even personally, but as a business, they would literally be like, I'm never coming to your business again. That text just cost me 50 cents. Like, and you sent 3 of them, you know what I mean? So I have a feeling that dentists are going to fight this this AI phone answering thing. Some dentists are going to fight it at the beginning, just like people fought text marketing at the beginning, because not everybody's going to love AI voice answering, right? Like some patients are going to be like, I'm never coming back there again because you had an AI bot. Like people are going to say that. And so then that's going to cause dentists to pull back because like, I don't want to lose this patient. It's a really good patient. And not realizing that, yes, you might lose a couple patients, but how many patients are you going to gain based on the black hole of marketing I just explained, right? Because AI will literally solve all of that. So I think that's the future. How fast it's going to roll out. It could be next year, 2025, or it could be 2027 based on what I just explained.
Yeah, and I've heard some of these AI phone calls.
Sorry, Carter, go ahead.
Worries. I've heard some of these AI phone calls, and they sound very realistic sometimes. So we may not even be worried about patients getting upset by being answered by AI. They may not even notice.
That would be really cool. Yeah, it's not all 100% there yet. Like the markets that I've seen the AI phones work are people who have, who are in more tech-friendly areas. Like they're just areas that are like Raleigh. It's usually areas that higher education, and they're just more acclimated to text. Those areas tend to do better with these kind of things because they're like, cool. I think what will happen, if you made me take a guess at it, is that like in the next year or so, call centers around the world will go out of business. There won't be India call centers. There won't be like in the next year or so, these call centers are going to go away. Like they'll disappear. Those jobs will no longer be there. So instead of you calling AT&T and getting somebody from India that you can barely understand or someone from the Philippines you have trouble communicating with, you'll get AI and you'll like it and you'll get used to it. And then that's when not everybody's going to have that, right? Because we all have cell phone carriers. We all work with banks, right? And they all use these call centers. AI will eventually just evaporate that. We'll get really comfortable with it. And then that will make dentists comfortable with it. That's my guess.
You heard it here, folks. Hot take by Gary Bird. I like it. You know, I feel like a lot of people, like you mentioned, will be initially turned off by the AI because a lot of people they like that personal touch, right? And initially that might help a lot of dentists feel like, oh, if I don't go AI, then I'm going to draw on a lot of these patients who maybe don't like that AI component. And for a little while, you might have dentists who are able to benefit from that change. There's going to be a lot of growing pains, I think, with that development, like you just mentioned. So a lot of dentists are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep it not AI to capitalize on all these people who don't want that. But eventually, it's just going to become so commonplace that people aren't going to care as much anymore. And I think that's a really, really good insight that you shared with us, Gary. I think our time's run out, but Gary, thank you so much for hopping on this, podcast episode with us. We're so grateful for all the expertise that you shared with us and our listeners. I feel like, marketing is such a sore spot sometimes for so many dentists, and giving them clarity and resources and information to help them understand how to better approach this topic is so important. And you've done just that. You've really uncovered so many different, I guess you could say, secrets, which aren't secrets, but a lot of dentists just don't know these things. If people wanted to reach out to you and maybe ask you some questions or see how they could, get help from SMC National, how could they go about doing that?
You can visit us at smcnational.com. That's our company website. And then you can find me on social media, The Gary Bird. I'm active on all social platforms, and especially on Facebook and the dental Facebook groups. And we also have a Facebook group for just around growth, and it's all dentists and marketing companies in there. I'm in there, but there's other marketing companies in there as well. And we talk about really nerdy dental growth stuff. So if you like that stuff, we have a dental Facebook group. Just find me, The Gary Bird, and you'll find our Facebook group.
Awesome. Well, it was great having you on, Gary Bird. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Revolution Dentistry podcast. If you are finding value here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We are here every week to help you grow, and we'll see you next time.